Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Prime Pediatric Podcast. I am absolutely elated. I have one of the coolest doctors I get to talk to in a very, very long time. I have Dr. Courtney Gowin here today with me, and I cannot wait to talk to Courtney. How are you doing?
I'm doing so good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm
Oh,
so excited to be here.
the pleasure is all mine, for real. Like, I know that you are a giant ball of sunshine down there in Texas. And for some of my amazing podcast listeners out there, I know they know who you are. I know you have a tremendous, amazing following on Instagram and on Facebook and throughout the entire Dallas community. You are a media juggernaut, just like we are up here in Green Bay. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Dr. Courtney, and just how amazing everything's been going for you?
Yes, it's been so good. It's funny you say that. I just walked off the Good Morning Texas news set. So I was on Good Morning Texas this morning, and I do a lot in the birth community and a lot on the U.S. maternal health sector. So really focusing on shifting the needle for maternal health care and in big ways. So I have the Nest, which is it's a birth collective. So we have about 10 birth providers that practice under our roof. We have 3 prenatal and pediatric chiropractors. And then my chiropractic practice is free to be. And then I run retreats in the Caribbean for chiropractors, for wellness providers. I host seminars for young female entrepreneurs. Just wrote a 500-page natural pregnancy book. And then I'm also a cattle rancher. And so I have a grass-fed beef business as well. So I kind of have my hand in a lot of different things. So it's been
And a
fun.
mama of 3.
Yes. And a home
Yeah.
birth mama of 3.
3
So it's
beautiful
good.
girls from what I could tell, right?
Yes. 3 girls. It's
Yeah.
wild. I love it so much.
So let's do this. I love this. I love this backstory. I love knowing more about you here. I know that you had just stated that you taught at Parker for a few years. So let's get a little bit of that background, that story, Dr. Gowin. Let's talk a little bit about your journey from chiropractic when you first started at Parker all the way up through. And you've made such a massive community impact. Can we get a little bit of your background and your own personal story? Because I know it's phenomenal.
Oh, yes. I love this story. I just feel like God's providence is through everything that I've done in my life. And looking back, it's always fun to revisit that and kind of see like the blessing even during the really hard times. It's funny. It actually started in undergrad. I won a business plan competition, and that business plan was about 13 pages long. And at the time I was like, oh, I don't need $2,000 for anything. I'm going to go backpack Europe. So I backpacked Europe. I came back, started chiropractic school, and I gave my 13-page business plan to Dr. Bodner, who was like some kind of development and chiropractic teacher. And he just kind of giggled and he was like, well, bring this back to me like in 3 years and see how this works out. And the idea was a collaborative based healthcare where basically people come together under one roof and provide services. At the time, I didn't realize it was going to be such an amazing birth, postpartum, perinatal wellness center, but I knew that I loved the idea. So fast forward a little bit, I'm really big into manifesting and just having your ideal vision in front of you. And I would just sit. It was Jeannie Ohm. She was like, sit and manifest what you want in your life. What do you want? Mm-hmm. And so every day I would just sit and I would say, what do I want in this practice? What do I want out of chiropractic? What do I want to do? And I just had this vision of this old Victorian home, a front porch, flowers on the porch, and a red mailbox. And I was like, man, this is exactly what I want. And so I just like had this vision. I wrote it down. I wanted to see kids. I wanted to see pregnancy. And so I was about to move to California, ended up meeting a guy, getting married. And I was like, man, I guess my California dreams are over with. And so I was like, man, there's nowhere in Dallas I'm going to find a practice like this. And my last little bit of chiropractic school, I was at the VA hospital in my residency, and I was scrolling through Craigslist on one of my breaks, and I see this beautiful picture of this old blue Victorian home. And I was like, this is it. I was like, I got to go look at this. And so I drive up, and it's a beautiful blue Victorian 3-story home that's turned into a commercial, and it has flowers on the porch. It has a red mailbox out front, and I got chills over my whole body. I was like, oh my gosh. And so I walked in, I said, hey, I'm going to practice here. And she was like, well, the basement's for lease. It's $1,500 a month. I was like, I don't have that type of money. I haven't even graduated yet. I was like, how about $800 a month? She was like, how about $900? She was like, your lease starts in January. And I graduated in December. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Because it just felt so naturally right. So I started in that little 800 square foot basement. And 6 months into practice, I took a pregnancy test and found out I was pregnant. And so here I am, this new business, this new, like, I didn't know what I was doing in business at all looking back, but I just had the faith and I believed that this is what God had called me to do. And so I get pregnant, I go throughout pregnancy, I'm getting the business off the ground. And I have my first daughter, and it is incredibly hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever been through. I suffered from super bad postpartum depression, and that was something that was a catalyst to the next phase in my life. I didn't realize how much of a blessing that very, very dark space was. And right about that time, I was juggling all this stuff. And the lady who was in the building, she called me up. She said, "Hey, we're actually leaving, and you're going to have to find a new place or take over and triple your overhead." So I was okay. Well, let me go home and pray about it. I've got this new baby. I've got this business that couldn't afford to triple my overhead. And I felt like I was drowning. And I just said, "God, give me a vision if you want me to do this." In the middle of that night, no joke, I woke up and I had the logo, I had the vision. It was like, I have to open the nest. And so through the nest, I brought in all these providers. And currently, we have 3 chiropractors, we have 5 massage therapists, an energetic healer, a nutritionist, pelvic floor PT, an acupuncturist, homeopath, and a functional nutritionist, and 2 speech and language pathologists. And so we brought all these people together under one roof. And throughout that time, like, I was hustling, man. Like, and then Parker called, they offered me the job to teach adjunct. And so I got to teach at Parker. I was teaching yoga. I was working at Lululemon. I was getting my business off the ground. I was getting this baby. Like, it was like the true meaning. I don't know if kids coming out these days, like, know hustle and grit quite like that.
You have to go.
But that's
You
something I
have
like
to
to kind
go.
of teach, like, it's definitely an interesting space. So it's been a really great journey. And I have 2 doctors that work for me now. They're just amazing women, and we just have a blast together. And then I went through a divorce, and it was through a lot of pain in that divorce that I went to the Caribbean, and I moved my body well, and I ate well, and I saw a lot of healers. I said, I think other people need this healing. And so I launched Barefoot Retreats and provided a healing space for healers to come down into the Caribbean. And so it was just, there's been a lot of ups and downs in my life. And I'm looking back, I'm so thankful for every little, like, bump and bruise and up and down, because it brought me to, like, such an amazing, amazing place in this life. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I hope that wasn't too long of an intro, but it's just been a wild journey, and I hope to encourage others along the way.
I'll tell you what, Dr. Courtney, that's an amazing journey. And it's something
Mhm.
that we cannot take lightly, because every one of us has certain steps we go through in our life that are predestined, pre-programmed. Like, the amazing thing is God knew who we were before we were even born, right? And
Amen.
he
Yeah,
knew
it's
your
very true.
destiny. He knew you were going to do. He knew you were going to have 3 kids. He knew you were going to end up divorced. Like, these are
Mhm.
all steps that he knew, that the life and the lessons and the light he was going to shed into your light. And look at how amazing and radiant you are. And
Yes.
I think that's awesome. And I'm going to give you a little pushback right now. There's going to be people that see you, and I see your stuff online too. I see your following on Instagram, and they're going to say,
Mhm.
"Oh, this lady's just pretty. She's cute. She's blonde.
Mhm.
She's got to have it easy." I'm telling you right now, learning,
No,
hearing
beauty
this story.
fades.
No,
Yeah.
it does. It does. And it's the life journey. It's the lessons we learn that make us who we
Mhm.
are. Everybody
Yeah.
thinks an overnight success is on a Saturday to a Sunday, when really it took 15 years of grit, determination, having kids, moving through life, understanding all the bumps and the bruises
Mhm.
that we go through to make and carve us into who we are, standing in front of people right now, particularly even in this interview, talking to one another, and knowing that our source, our creator, is who created us and put us on this earth to make a massive difference. And I can feel that in you. And that's
Mhm.
phenomenal. So
That's so good.
tell me about this nest and the collective, because this is something that young chiros, I meet a lot of young chiros. I meet a lot of really chiros that want to talk about kids and pediatrics and having a
Mhm.
pediatric practice and a kids practice. But you're doing something that a lot of docs talk about, but they don't actually want to really put the grit into doing. And that's creating a collaborative, and a
Mhm.
massive
Yes.
collaborative, and then creating the community behind it. And
Mhm.
do you feel that the galvanizing factor behind all of that is the community you've created?
That's all it is. It really is community-based healthcare. And that's a big thing that I like to teach and talk on, is you can't do this on an island. you have to have other people around you, especially as women, as a mother. I'm a single mother now. And so it's either do or die. And I know I cannot do it alone. And so I've surrounded and insulated myself with people that I know I can trust and that have my back and that are on the same mission. And I think the way you build community is you love one person at a time. When I first started this, is if I could make an impact in one person's life, the student loans, the late nights, the pain, like whatever we went through to become chiropractors, it was so worth it because I was able to touch and impact one person. And if you have that present time consciousness with your patients, with your community, with your people that you interact with on a daily basis, then that's where community starts to grow and shift. I had a mentor tell me, this practice is something like an oak tree. It's something that you plant the seed and it grows roots and grows into a small tree and grows into a long tree or a tall tree. And it's lasting. Something that grows very fast can be cancerous. And so the community base was built along a lot of relationships and relationship marketing and things like that. And 10 years of networking in the profession and just being able to be present with people. And so, yeah, I would say anybody coming out of school, it's definitely a wonderful model to practice in. And I was, it's my latest adventure is I was like, man, God, tell me what I want to do. Like, do I want to franchise this? Do I want to license it? Because I know it's so special. And a crazy door opened, and I actually created a nonprofit foundation through the Nest. And so what we're building right now is an intergenerational maternal wellness space where we bring in grandmothers with the wisdom of motherhood, and we bring them up with the new mothers, and we create healing in that aspect of to just shift the needle a bit to create a new standard in our maternal health care.
You mean pass down education from generation to generation? What a thought,
huh.
Right? That's amazing.
What a concept.
It's not run by old medical doctors that are men from the 80s. Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Practice of obstetrics. Exactly. Best book my wife has ever read and that I've looked at was Male Practice. And that was tough to see that by Jeannie Ohm. God rest that woman's soul. She was a bright light. What an amazing candle that woman was. And we look at this, and I look at all of this that you're doing and this nonprofit. We have a nonprofit up here in Green Bay as well. I find it interesting that when we go down the road of nonprofits, people feel that because you're a small business, you're an entrepreneur, that you're starting nonprofits for tax shelters. I start nonprofits for people shelters. I start nonprofits to help my community, and you're doing the exact same thing. So I applaud you for that. And it's not a small feat. And we have such a massive heart behind it, because in chiropractic, we hear about this give, love, serve thing, right? This GLS thing that just kind of moves through us. But the other side of it is what are we doing with the financial abundance that we've been given to give back to our communities? This is huge. This is huge.
It's very big.
A tip of the cap to you, my lady. That's amazing. And I know for real, like, it's not easy.
No, it's not. And I will tell you that firsthand. But I think it's different when you have an internal purpose that just flows through you, and your energy is boundless. It's just whenever it's literally flowing through you. But also, to speak to that, I think like we're taught to give, love, serve, and we do. But as female entrepreneurs, like I didn't have a login to my checking account when I was married. I had no idea how to manage money. I had no idea what to do, how to invest, how to do like rental properties, like all these things that we're not really taught as women chiropractors. Men too, but it speaks.
No, you're right.
To create financial independence with this give, love, serve. Yes, there's that, but you have to be able to steward the money well to create a life that you love to give back. Yeah. I don't think that's talked about enough. And that's my next seminar. It's going to be. You
smoked it. I bet are you doing it with Dr. Javid, with Nona?
Oh yeah, she'll be there.
Yeah, she's amazing. Her vibration, 100%. Her frequency. I highly recommend you reach out to Mel Krug too. She's amazing. Okay. We're looking at all of this together as a collective, and you're 100% correct. I think a female entrepreneur is something that is an incredible untapped resource of education that men don't even pay attention to and talk to. This is why I interview women nonstop. This is
good. Thank you.
I want to learn more because it's different. And also I see this massive gap in understanding how these businesses work. Who runs this office? Who runs Prime Family Chiropractic Center? My wife, Dr. Julie. And she's blonde and driven just like you. And I see a lot of my amazing wife in you. I think that's why I have such a rapport with you right here, because it's so amazing to see, and the drive that you have. So let's talk about what drove you as a female chiropractor? Okay, what was that driving force? Because you're hitting on it, but what grabbed you? What was it? Because a lot of people, they talk about their why, and why is this touchy feely thing, but you wanted something different in your community. And what was it?
I think I just saw the void, and I would look into these women's eyes and I would see the depression, and I would see these babies that have vaccine injuries. I would see these kids that were struggling, these people that were lonely, these elderly women who are struggling. And I would see, and it would just literally shift my soul. And something inside of me just kind of clicked. And it clicked a lot of it when I went through my divorce and when I went through really traumatic things. I was in a wheelchair 3 years ago. I couldn't walk. I was incapacitated. And at these very, very low points in my life, that's when you hit rock bottom. But I love the quote where it talks about when you hit rock bottom, it's the best thing ever because you find the solid core of yourself, like the hard stuff that you're made of. And so I've had to find out what I'm made of a few times in this life. And it gave me a fire that is unquenchable. And so to be able to shift that within your being, like I've had a great life, but I've also been through a lot. And I've been able to dig down deep and come out of this with a lot of peace and a lot of happiness and joy that a lot of people don't have the blessing to do.
So you hit on something pretty cool. And you talked about an acorn seed. And I'll say you're probably a mustard seed like I was. And you make bigger trees. But here's the thing, it's the root system. It's the foundation that's strong, because we look at this all the time. What's one of the fastest growing trees in the environment? It's a pine tree. Pine trees grow incredibly quick, but pine trees actually have incredibly weak roots. They are 100% surface based. That's why they blow over in big windstorms all the time. But you don't see oak trees blow over very often. You never see a mustard seed on the ground. You never see a mustard tree on the ground either. And the reason why is that strong, strong foundation. What drove your foundation, Dr. Gowin? What gives you that strong, those roots? And you hung on to those because you didn't shake. What drove those roots? What bound you to the soil so hard? Because how do roots go deep? This is a farming question. Roots go deep because of mild drought. They don't go deep because the surface is always wet. The surface is wet, the corn don't go deep. Then when the drought hits, the corn doesn't grow. Okay?
You're speaking my language now. I'm a cattle rancher.
This is Wisconsin farm boy too, but it's the truth. Wet springs don't lead to plentiful harvest. Okay.
Yes,
and
that's very true.
So when we look at you, like what grew your roots? Where did you find solace, and where did you find that just galvanized you hard? I know it was, you said you hit rock bottom. You found, and a lot of people who say rock bottom, but it's different for everybody.
It is.
And you hit that bottom, those areas, that soul searching. What galvanized your roots, Dr. Gowin?
I think a lot of it was my daughters, and to set an example for them whenever they look up at me and they look back on their lives and they see a woman of grace and of strength and of dignity, and someone who never compromised herself, and someone who really just wanted to be a good example for them and to grow strong women and leaders in them. So I think that was a big, big, big part of, like, your children give you purpose, but in this, they gave me motivation and purpose. And so I think that was a really big, big motivating factor.
Our children are blank slates. I have a 14-year-old daughter, like literally tomorrow, she turns 14. My son is 11. They are 100% blank slates. And my job is to create and raise a God-fearing man and a God-fearing woman that serves herself with grace and purpose. And here's the thing that I find absolutely amazing is that I know the way that I interact with my daughter, I know the way that I talk with her will actually solidify her self-worth, her self-purpose the rest of her life. It comes from me, and the grace comes from her mama, and the grace comes from her learning from her mama. But the same thing from my son. My son learns all these habits, all these different rituals that I do. He takes on himself. Like, he walks down the sidewalk with his mama. He stands on the right-hand side of her towards traffic, so she's not near traffic. Where did he get that? He got that from his daddy. Okay.
Yeah.
She teaches him self-worth as well. And that's, you have an amazing job now of being the mom, what you are, is teaching your daughters that self-worth plus that grace, which is not an easy thing. And I think that's absolutely amazing. So now, Dr. Gowin, where do you see yourself going? Because you talk about healing the healer. And I hear this a lot with a lot of docs in chiro, that us chiros need healing too. And we deal with a lot of stuff. So we're with your retreats. What do you do for us? How do you help us out? How do you help us clear? How do you help us stay balanced? How do you help us heal? Because healing us is key.
And it is. And I think that we give and we give and we give. And our jobs are so physical. We see 100, 200 people a day. And it's just one of those like, oh, it's almost an assembly line because you're just adjusting on your feet. It's crazy. And then you add on the mental, the physical, the emotional stress of running a business and a family. And what the retreats come down to is to disconnect to reconnect. We disconnect, we get away from our everyday life, we get away from our everyday world, and we reconnect to our purpose and our passion. Even talking to you today, it's like, oh, I was reminded of a few things, like even just an instance of mindfulness. And so we take that time and we curate it around a beautiful atmosphere that has healing energy and foods and movement and yoga and waterfalls and beach and all these things that kind of create an experience that people can go through and walk through and be reminded of their soul purpose of what they're doing and what they want to do next and create the vision for them.
We want the best experiences in the world. We have to tap into all five senses, which is exactly what I feel that you are doing, which is
Amen.
amazing.
Yes, that's so true.
Something amazing about how this world was created, this earth was put together, and how all four senses and five senses are intertwined. And the most happiest people are the ones that find them and can actually balance. And I think some of the most happiest, amazing people on the planet are chiropractors, because we kind of, I feel we have a leg up because we understand the balance and the sole purpose of the body, right? And to talk and to have that. And the one thing I wanted to tell you is that the reason why you felt so amazing when you found your soul place was because it came from your soul. It came from joy. And you have joy in your heart. You weren't looking for happiness. You weren't looking for happenings. You were looking for joy, and you were finding that soul spot. I love that, because joy comes from God. It makes me so happy. You're so amazing. This is great. So
you're amazing. Yes.
Where do you see yourself now in the next 5 years, Dr. Gowin? I've actually never asked that to any of my interviews, because I really truly want to see where do you see yourself going? Because you've made such a huge impact. You've made such a massive impact in your community. What's the next big thing for Dr. Gowin?
I've always had it on my heart to have a global vision. I have globes everywhere in my house. I have maps everywhere. I travel the world. Like, I just have such a global vision. And I think the nonprofit will be a catalyst.
Yes.
Because we're going to start doing medical missions, not only with chiropractors, but with OBGYNs, with pediatricians, with everybody in the maternal healthcare space, to help impact women around the world in different villages and cultures. And I've made some great connections across the world that have spurred. I was just on the phone a couple months ago with Harvard researchers at Harvard Chan University talking about maternal health care. We talked about thoughts, traumas, and toxins and how it affects the growing baby within the mother and the fetal origins of health. And so these are the conversations that I'm having with a lot of people around the world. So my prayer in 5 years is that we'll be doing something global to shift the needle, because how amazing would it be to have somebody as a principled chiropractor setting the standard for maternal health care across the globe?
Be huge. So you're raising the entire world's consciousness about birth, which is phenomenal. And I'm hearing this, and I literally, like, my arms started standing up again, because that's huge. And from a man's perspective, from my perspective, that exclusively works almost exclusively with females, young men, and pregnancy. Like, our office is 70% children, and half of those children are under 6 months of life, and the other percentages is pretty much filled with pregnancy. Like, this is what we do. And to see this, to hear this, and to have another amazing driving force that can be out there, from my perspective, is I just want to say, you go, lady. Like, please keep moving it, because the impacts you make, everything you do will travel generations and create this massive legacy. But while you're in the midst of it, while you're in the dust, while you're in the dirt, and you're creating these massive impacts, it's so rewarding and it's so awesome to see. So now, do you see yourself out of practice in the next 5 years? Do you see yourself still practicing down at the nest? Like, or do you see yourself taking that higher role of bringing in more docs to learn from you?
I love the idea of bringing in more docs. I don't know if I'll ever give up patient care, maybe one day a week, is my goal. I'm at 2.5 right now, and it's
I don't know if I
good,
can
but
completely stop myself either.
when it's in your soul, those new, like, it's interesting when you work on a newborn, it's one of the only times that I'm completely present, like completely like in the moment, nothing else is on my mind, looking in that newborn's eyes, working on that newborn. And it is like, it's not work. I love adjusting newborns. It's my favorite thing in the world. So I think I'll probably keep patient care as long as I can hold on to it, my schedule allows, but it is something that I really do love, the fundraising and the galas and the things that go around with like the high level CEO role. So hopefully one day I'll be able to step into that, but I can't do it alone. So currently I'm insulating myself with the right people to take those steps. So we'll see. God only knows.
It's and to quote one of my coaches, Dr. Sean Dill, you're a direct result of the 5 most closest people in your life. And it sounds to me like you keep moving the needle, you keep changing the room, and you change the room to change yourself. And it's absolutely amazing. That's why this podcast with you has been phenomenal. And I truly appreciate you. How can my listeners get a hold of you, Dr. Courtney? How can they learn more and more and more about you?
They can definitely follow and reach out on Instagram at Dr. Courtney Gowin, Gowin. And then if you want to see any of the structure that we've put in place for our chiropractic clinic, it's free to be chiropractic. And then the nest is nestbirth.com. And then we'll be releasing the foundation here in about 3 to 5 months. So we're working on that process. So
that is awesome. Good luck with the foundation. That is awesome.
Thank you. I'll have to pick your brain a little bit.
Oh, we're here for you. We've been doing the Spine Project for over 5 years, and that is a 501c3 for military and their families. And the amount of kids I've impacted through that, and the amount of pregnant moms I've dealt with through the military, it's just amazing. That's a whole different podcast. You are phenomenal. And all y'all listening, you need to find Dr. Gowin if you don't know where she is. If you've been living under a rock, a boulder, or sitting in a river somewhere, not paying attention, this doctor is moving and shaking the earth in a good way. And she knows why she's here. She knows why she was created, and she is phenomenal. Dr. Gowin, thank you so much for coming on with me. This has truly been a pleasure, and it actually has been all my honor. Thank you so much. Do you have any parting words for my amazing audience before you leave?
Just never give up. I think if you have a soul purpose, make it your purpose. So, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care, Dr. Gowin. Have a great day. Now, everybody, go out there and get it done. Take care. Bye.